you're not used to. For those folks here that are new to Open Farm Days, it's a province-wide event, really, where we have this opportunity to share rural experiences with urban folks and also with neighbors and communities. It's always the third weekend in August, and we're running, as always, on the Saturday and the Sunday. We are having more and more different partners do Friday events as well. And just for those of you that aren't aware, our insurance policy does cover Friday as well. So certainly that opportunity to include some stuff on those fringe days. And our goal with this really is the education part. And that is one of the mandatory components of Open Farm Days, is having that free education experience. The commerce angle, obviously something that we do encourage and support, and we help coach for. But the education part obviously is one of the mandatory components of it. And the key thing is for people to learn where their food comes from, how it's produced, and then how they can support a local food system, and also getting people out into rural Alberta. We're delighted with some of the feedback that we've had from our surveys and the comments from people talking about how lovely it is to understand a little bit more and get out into rural Alberta. So I think it's we're hitting the marker on it. Our team is pretty lean and mean. So there's 3 of us. So Suzanne, I'll ask you to unmute. And Suzanne is our fearless leader here.
Hi, everyone. So I work for the Alberta Association of Ag Societies, who oversees Alberta Open Farm Days. So if there's any questions you have or any emails you send in, I'm typically the one that will respond to them. It sometimes will take us a day or two to get to your emails, because I do have other stuff I work on besides Open Farm Days, but I do try to get back to you fairly quickly if I can. So yeah, just reach out if you have any questions and we will help you out.
Wonderful. So anyone that's sending it to info@Open Farm Days, your emails are going directly to Suzanne. And Cameo, we're delighted to have Cameo join our team last year. So some of you will have had a chance to meet with her, or perhaps exchange emails, or sit on some of her fabulous training for social media. But Cameo, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I am Cameo. To those of you I have not met before, I was actually just telling the girls that it's coming up on my 1 year. So that's exciting. I feel like I'm starting to know what I'm doing around here. So for me, I look after all the marketing and the communications for Open Farm Days. And really, when it comes to host farms, I really just want to be here to support any way I can in helping you guys market your event, your farm, in the best way possible. So whether that's social media, web, earned media, talking through press and getting stories and things like that, influencer marketing, etc. And a big thing too is, one of the biggest barriers for me is not having content, like actual photos, videos, etc. on the farms. So I always encourage you guys, if you have anything happening on your farm that's really neat or interesting or very visual, maybe it's a baby animal being born, maybe it's just a beautiful sunset, maybe it's something, some other content you created that's a little bit more informational. If you want to send that to me or tag us on social, that's always majorly helpful, because it gives us great content to showcase, because at the end of the day, our real communication goals are showcasing you guys and what's happening on our farms, and really gaining interest that way. And then the last thing too is, because this year's theme is water, and water applies to every single farm and every single person on this planet, we are asking for water stories from all of you. So any of you that have been in any of the emails up until this point, you've probably seen a blurb in there about submitting your water stories. But here's another open invite. If you have a story that you'd like shared, please do reach out to me. I have just a questionnaire that you're able to fill out on your own time, that highlights, something unique that's happening to do with water on your farm. And from that, we then share it on a social post, and on our website as a story. And then it gets more opportunity to also be picked up by other local publications. So if you have that, please also reach out to me. But yeah, that's it. Looking forward to Open Farm Days this year, and the next few months of real heavy duty promotion and comms. I'll send my email in the chat right now.
Great. Thank you, Cameo. All right. And I'm Tanis, and I'm here to help support some of your initiatives around ideation things that you're looking to do. I've been with the Open Farm Days almost since the beginning, so I've got a bit of experience, and I've seen some things that people have worked on and tried. So happy to help kind of connect you with some thoughts and ideas. I also take over for the regulatory stuff. So if you're looking for AHS permits, AGLC can help you sort of navigate through some of those channels as well. And just so you know, in next month, we do have our workshops coming up for AGLC and AHS. I noticed a few comments coming into the inbox. So Suzanne or Cameo, can you just, if you can watch the inbox, and if there's any questions you want me to answer as we go, we can kind of do that. So today we're going to be talking about two things. We're talking about kids' activities on your farms, and we're also talking about our host resource checklist. So to kick things off, all of you who have registered will have the password for our website. And if you go on to host and resources, you don't use your email for this. All you need is the password, and you put that in, and then that gets you into the back end of Open Farm Days. And so I'd like, this presentation really is talking about some of those resources and your checklist for getting your farm ready. And this program here, we're going to be talking a little bit about our checklist. Checklist is one of those first things that you're going to see when you get into that host resource section. So we're going to kind of mirror along with it and talk about what you need to be doing for your farms. So checklist is there. Feel free to follow along if you've got this printed off. And if you've got any questions, happy to address any of those questions as we go. First thing that we talk about in our host resources is understanding insurance. We did have NFP join us a few months back to talk about what's new in insurance. So I'm very happy to report that our changes for this year and last year include equine activities. There was a couple of years there where we were not permitted to cover those things as part of the insurance policy due to a wagon rollover that happened in Ontario, which made people a little bit squeamish about covering it. But it is back on, so we are good to go with that. So we don't have those restrictions. The policy will come out in your farm name that you registered at Open Farm Days for. And this usually comes out about 3 or 4 days before Open Farm Days. So if you have registered, you will get the policy. It will come out in your name. But the list is run as close to the date as possible because Open Farm Days pays for each of the farms and for their policy. So our goal is to make sure, if there's any acts of nature that is causing someone to have to cancel last minute, that we're not paying for extra farms there. So that policy will be coming out. So no worries about that. There's nothing you need to do to instigate that. Next thing that's important is signage and wayfinding. For people to actually find their ways to your farm, that's one of the most important things. So there's a couple of things that you can be doing. You're probably familiar with our website. You will see that we have the pin drops there. We have all the information. The information that we have is what you've submitted. So if there's information that's incorrect, sometimes your actual pin drop might end up in the middle of an ocean or something. It's happened before. So what we'd like to do is ask you to double check. So Google your farm. If your farm name has a Google listing, see where that takes you. If it takes you to the wrong place, you can actually have that changed and corrected. So, take a little bit of initiative with that so that you can go and make sure it is correct. What's really interesting is we'll have people that submit their information for Open Farm Days, and in that they will say, don't follow Google Maps, it'll take you to the wrong place. So what we would say is you've got enough time, so make sure that you've corrected anything that can be corrected so that it can take you to the correct place. So that's kind of to kickstart it. We're going to move on to the signage and wayfinding. Your signs, if you are a new farm, you will have your signs, and you should have those by probably early July at the latest. The signs are the ones that are up on the truck there. You can see that. You've got a package of signs, which allows you to have them in multiple locations. And these are really good tools because our visitors come to know and recognize our signs. So sometimes even if they haven't registered to attend your farm, if they see your sign at, off the highway or off a road, they will know that that's a path that they can take. So make good use of those signs. You can be creative. You can see what they've done with them here. So there's lots of different ways you can use those signs in creative places. There are some restrictions around signage when it's on major highways and things like that. So just ensure that you're not having any issues with where you have put them. We also ask that you keep the signs. So we ask our farms to keep the signs for a minimum of 3 years. The funny thing is they probably last much longer, and that is one of the significant costs to us for Open Farm Days is producing those. So instead of tossing them, hold on to those for 3 years, and then we'll replenish when you need refresh in signs. But those are important things to kind of hold on to. All right. Again, as we keep talking about those signs, the right places to put them along with other information is really important. Parking is one of those critical things for your farms. And if you start a parking line, people will follow. If you don't start something, they don't know where to go. So they will determine what they think is best. So if they come and you've got like a small driveway, they aren't going to automatically go and park on the grass where you sort of thought was a perfect place for them all to go. They will actually just park and jam up your whole driveway, because for them, they're thinking, well, I don't want to drive on the grass. So they will jam up your driveway. So really very important to do that. When you're starting to think about your parking, if you park 1 or 2 vehicles, farm equipment, whatever it is, in a row, that'll naturally form a line and people will automatically follow suit. It's also handy if you have the manpower or the volunteers to have someone that is in that area sort of directing traffic and welcoming people when they first land. So in this case here, we've got the sign out front, we've got a person that's there clearly with the farm, and they're able to help kind of let people know what sort of general direction they should be heading. So we also strongly recommend having a designated greeting space. So people come in, they park, and there's that first point of contact. That point of contact is a great opportunity for you to share details about your program, post a schedule that we'll talk about in a little bit, and also have any of your emergency plans. If anything should go wrong, somebody at the parking lot knowing emergency contact numbers, knowing where a first aid kit is, that type of thing is really a great thing to plan ahead for. We've been very fortunate. We haven't had any major problems with Open Farm Days, but it's just, if you're prepared for it, that's really the best thing that you can do. Now, once they've arrived, we know that you've got tours planned, you've got all your educational experiences and stuff, and having a place where visitors can check in, see what your daily agenda looks like is really, so essential. We've had some feedback from farms where people have gone and said, hey, there wasn't an educational experience. We followed up with the farms and they said, oh, well, we were doing it all day, and we did it anytime anyone asked. We did our barn tours, we did whatever. But the reality is the consumer's not going to ask. So having a posted schedule or having something that lets those visitors know, if they don't see it, they're going to assume it doesn't exist. So really important to tell them that you've got barn tours that can be happening throughout the day, or if you want a tour and tasting, if you want whatever it is, have that schedule posted so that the consumer, when they arrive, understands what your plan is for the day. The other thing is, let's say somebody arrives at 11 o'clock and you're in the middle of a tour and your next one's not planned till 12. If they get there and they see a posted schedule that says the next tour is at 12, they're like, oh, okay, that's great. And they'll wander around, they'll look at, whatever it is that they can. But in the absence of a posted schedule and information, then that hour that they're waiting for seems like there's nothing planned and there's nothing going on. So that posted schedule is really a service to everybody, both the visitors and yourself. It keeps people from getting grumpy and let people know what they can expect. We also suggest for those schedules that you have posted on the website as well. And then people can build their timing based on really what you're going to be doing. Now, one of the most important things is keeping things safe. This is both for your animals and for your guests, and keeping your visitors out of places that they shouldn't go. They don't inherently know where they're not supposed to go unless you tell them. So what we suggest, clear mark paths to barns and things that you know where they can go. If you have large potholes, gopher holes, things like that, that could be problematic. You know, fill them ahead of time if you can do that. If you are in an inside space that has, this is more for like our dairy barns and things like that. If it's slippery or unsafe, you know, put cones up, let people know where they need to stay out of, or even just warn that it's wet and slippery. Electric fences, a lot of urbanites are not familiar with those sorts of things. So if they can safely be turned off, great. If that's not the thing to do, then that's okay. But then identify and let people know when they're there. Animal protocols, you should be talking about, you know, things that might seem really, really obvious to you. You know, don't try and pat the bison or whatever it is, might not be obvious to somebody else. So making those sorts of things clear, that can be done at the front, or that can be done with little signs posted. And there's a treasure trove of signs that you can just print off from the internet, that, you know, you can just laminate or put in a plastic sleeve and post. Those things are pretty effective for letting people know. Chemicals, anything that you've got that you want small hands and small people to stay away from should either be, you know, put aside or in an area where they can't get into them. And then, you know, that perfect opportunity to kind of clean up any of those pesky little, you know, wires, nails, things like that that you've been meaning to get to. It's a good time when you've got little people around. So really thinking about some of the spaces. It's absolutely your choice, and I would suggest opportunity to keep certain areas off space. You can't clean up everything, you can't put everything away, so just say, hey, no access to this barn, but mark it, because people think that if you're open for open farm days, they might be able to go everywhere. So what you want to do is let them know, no, you can't go everywhere. This is off bounds. You can use, you know, sort of the orange tape. You can use different kind of signage or do not enter signs. And then what you also want to do is have a plan. So if you're serving food and you know you're going to have plates and napkins and things like that, there should be garbage bins. It should be obvious for people where they can put them, so that it doesn't accumulate and look kind of sloppy. AHS is going to want to know if you have hand wash stations and things, what are you going to do with your wastewater? So those are little niggly things, but things that will be important to some of our regulatory bodies. Smoking becomes less and less of an issue, but if you have a no smoking policy on your farm, it doesn't hurt to mention it. We always say the same thing about pets as well. Please don't bring your dogs. It's also good to mention it when people check in. A lot of people still think it's a fun idea to bring their dog to the farm. So so you can stop that at the gate if they've brought them that far. We do our best to discourage and tell people they can't bring them, so they won't be surprised if you're not allowing a pet in there. But it does happen every year. We do get a few people that do show up with pets and stuff like that. So staffing and merchandising is something that's super important for your volunteers, your family members, and things like that. You know, you want to think about roles and responsibilities. You should be recruiting some people so that they can help you and support those initiatives. They can greet people. You could be selling things. So however you want to use them, but have roles and responsibilities. They should have a clear idea of the farm, what's going on, what the schedule looks like. So anyone that's working there should understand your emergency protocols, and they should understand of what's happening. And it doesn't matter if it's another vendor or a farm that has come. There's no harm in printing out what your schedule of events for that day is and giving it to everybody that's there, because basically any visitor that's there will assume that anyone that's standing behind a table anywhere knows everything that's going on in the farm. So if you arm them with that information, it makes it the event a lot more fun and a lot easier. And again, that safety plan, whether it's a Band-Aid that somebody needs or something more serious, a copy of those protocols would be helpful. You know, and people know the emergency numbers. Now, this is interesting, merchandising. We have a lot of people that have very successful open farm days. We have some of our farms that have a $10,000 day. So which is wonderful. The few things that we hear back from our consumers, they want to see everything priced, not necessarily by weight, but by what is that thing going to actually cost. You know, I know in the grocery stores you do it one way, but the consumers aren't always kind of savvy, so they just kind of want to know, so there's no sticker shock at the price of purchase. So that's something that we recommend. Payments, not everybody carries cash, so if there's an opportunity for you to have some sort of method for accepting, whether it's e-transfers or some form of like a Square Reader, some sort of payment system, that's great. If it's cash only, strongly recommend that you put cash only on your website, and then people will know that they need to do that. And we know that some people have lots of problems with internet, and it makes it hard for alternate things. So e-transfers after the fact kind of work, but if you flag that there's no other form other than cash, then hopefully people should be prepared for that. All right. Animals. I always say there's a reason the national parks tell tourists not to feed the bears. People are idiots. We know this. They just don't understand. And they're wanting to do the right thing, but they don't always have the understanding of the animals that you do. So they see them as pets. They see them as things that can be petted. So really kind of stopping that at the get-go. You also have a lot of young children that aren't going to be able to read the signs as well, and parents that, again, might not be as aware as you are of where dangers could be. So please be clear about your rules about your animals and areas that they can go and that they can't go, and what any risks might be. Like, hey, you can go and feed these chickens, but just be aware of whatever that is. And it's for your animal safety as well as for the safety of the people that are visiting. It's interesting too. We all get sick, animals get sick, and we know that there's no one that cares more about the animals than the farmers. But when a visitor who doesn't understand it sees something that looks like it's sick or in distress of some sort, it doesn't matter if it's under veterinarian care and you're managing it, that's what they see and they don't understand. So our recommendation usually is any animals that are under any sort of treatment or veterinarian care, is you might want to have them in a separate area or out of viewing for the day, unless you're prepared to discuss animal welfare and what's going on and how you're treating it and what you're doing. So there will be questions. So we're not necessarily saying tuck them away, but if they're out, then you will want to be able to talk about it, because people won't necessarily understand. Gates and latches, make sure everything is secure. Look for spaces where children can get through, because again, they won't always know the rules. And that checkpoint again, to make sure that people have not brought pets. Those are kind of some of the key things there. All right, food. Food is one of those things that we kind of talk about a lot. It's a really important part of agritourism and that food story. So, excuse me, there's some challenges with food and there's lots of opportunities as well. So certainly not the easiest thing to do, but the opportunities are really good to be able to promote what you're doing and how you're doing it. And it's something that the visitors absolutely love. So our next month, we do have AHS and AGLC. So we will have Thomas Ma, and he'll be talking about what are the low risk foods and easy foods that you can have on your farm and what the process is for doing that. And we'll have Tony Hazelwood from AGLC talking about artisan permits, artisan markets, and having licenses for your event. So we try and make it as simple as possible, break down as many barriers, but there is some paperwork that goes with it, and that paperwork needs to be started 30 days out for you to be able to have everything that you need for it. So what do you need permits for? We'll be going through that at length in that one. But from a top line level, anytime that you are selling prepared foods, they need to be prepared in a commercial kitchen or an AHS approved kitchen space. and you need to have some proper food handling. So that's important to know. If you want to do picnic lunches, those sorts of things are great. There's no cost to getting these permits. It just takes time and an understanding of what that process is like. I'd like to say that every time you go through the AHS permitting, what's great is once you do it once for your farm and you've provided a little map, you've talked about what you're doing, you've got that document that you can continue to use for future years, and you can kind of resubmit. So it's a little bit more onerous the first time you do it, and it becomes easier and easier as you go. With AHS, we have different people for each region. So there's not one person that oversees what we do for Open Farm Days. It will be your regional person. And when you submit your applications online, it goes directly to your region. AGLC is different. We have one person, Tony Hazelwood, and she oversees all of our Open Farm Days permits. So what's nice about that is we've got one person that helps us stick handle it through, understands our program inside and out and what we're trying to accomplish, which makes it a lot easier. So the reason we don't have the same for AHS is we have different issues with water and different things around the province. So some things that are okay in one end of the province are not in another. So that requires a regional oversight. So it does create a few more challenges that way. But I would say it is certainly worth some of the effort to figure it out. And I'll use one example, but we had one of our farms who had yaks, and she was selling meat and wanted to be able to explain like how similar it is, and the proof is in the pudding, you need to try it. So she went through the process and she did a yak chili. She went to the local community hall, which is licensed, and she produced her chili, had it done it all up in a big crock pot, and then was able to transport it to her farm and serve her chili. So and sold out of her chili and had a great time with it. So it is a bit of work, but it was an opportunity to be able to do something that's authentic. The thing that our visitors are looking for is they're looking for local food. So food trucks are great. If you're working with a food truck, we would say see if they will work with your own food so that people can taste what your farm tastes like. So food trucks are good. They're not looking for just like prepackaged stuff that you can buy at Costco and sell to them. They're not looking for chips and chocolate bars and things like that. They, some of the biggest successes have been things like chili and sloppy joes and pulled pork and things that are just authentic local food. Ones that are simplified are people that have done sort of bison dogs and hamburgers and things that have been processed, and they purchased meat at a federally inspected facility, and you can cook those things up. But again, you're still getting local food. So anyways, there's lots of ways to approach it. Some of them are easier than others, but certainly I would say certainly worth the effort. And there's something that's called Taste to Place. And so I just want to touch on it. We're not going to get too foodie on you, but when we talk about Taste to Place, it's like, what does this taste like? And you can't have an experience of Alberta food anywhere other than really Alberta. So when you're starting to think about food, if you're going to be doing something, the more regional that you can be, I would say do it. And people have come out and had this amazing meal that represents what is grown, produced in the area. So that's what you want to see. So strongly encourage that. All right, moving on to equipment. So our checklist for equipment is really going through all of your vehicles, everything that's on the farm. Make sure keys are removed from all of your vehicles. Parking brakes should be engaged, and where it makes sense, put little wheel blocks and stuff behind the wheels. Sharp blades and stuff should be removed. If you don't want people inside any of your equipment, whatever they can be done to block, to lock it, or to put a sign on it saying no climbing on the equipment. If you're okay with it, then you can let them know, that they can explore the machinery, but whatever those rules and regulations are around it. But in the absence of somebody telling them that they can or can't, little people, the children particularly, are very interested in a lot of the machinery and the equipment. So figuring out how to either make it safe or out of bounds is something that you'll want to consider. If you are providing rides on equipment, and that could be anything from hay rides and stuff like that, there's a couple of things that we just want to flag for you. We are good to go this year for insurance for it, so that's great. We do have a number of farms that will actually work with neighboring farms, and they will take a hayride from one farm to another. In this case, if you are taking a hayride to another location, it's very important that other location also be a registered Open Farm Days farm to be covered, because if an accident happens on somebody else's property that's not yours, then our insurance policy is in your name and covering your space, not their space. So if you are working with a neighboring farm, please let us know who they are so we can make sure that we've got the proper coverage. So both your neighboring farm and you are covered for that experience. If you are running something, make sure that there's guardrails in place on the sides of any of the wagons, and that there's someone there to help small children or people that might need assistance getting up onto that space. So step ladders and things like that. And emergencies. Again, something that we hope we don't have any issues with, but something that you want to be prepared for. So if you were to take a look at in our host resource section, there is an emergency section in there. So you want to take a look at it. There's one document in there for an emergency prepared plan. And it's great because it has a list of, I know my local number for all emergencies. So it is a great document that you can actually fill in. That is called the Rural Emergency Plan. And if you fill all of that in, it's something that's easy for you to print out, and then you can leave it at the registration desk. You can leave it at your vendor area. You can leave it in the barns so that any of your volunteers or your support team have access to it. And it's pretty comprehensive, and it would cover anything and more that you need. And it's just one of those things. If you know you've got it and you put it aside, I think there's a certain comfort in knowing that it's kind of covered. So you're looking for exits. Do you have a first aid kit? Do you have a fire extinguisher? Does everybody know where they are? All those local numbers. All the staff there know who to call if something happens. And then any of your volunteers or staff or anyone that does have any sort of first aid or CPR, if you've identified that and have that conversation just before things get started. If some emergency should ever arise, and we hope that it never does, then at least everybody's prepared and the panic is less, and it's more about kind of providing kind of resources to that. I guess I'll just, any quick questions about our checklist, and if not, then I can go on to the next part. No? All right. Cameo, Suzanne, you'll just let me know if there's anything in there we need to talk about. The other thing in our checklist, I'll just direct you to, is something called a planning calendar. If you want to take a look at the planning calendar, it kind of gives you breakdown. 6 months out, you should be doing this. 3 to 4 months out, you should be doing this. 1 month out, you should be doing that. If you want to follow those sorts of things, I think there's some really good guidelines in there of what should I be doing now. And of course, we are here as your resources to help you kind of support these sorts of initiatives. All right, so now we're going to jump over and talk about having kids on your farm and a little bit about why we're doing this and what we should be doing. And so throw a couple of statistics at you about global ag. What's really exciting is rural and agritourism are seeing really unprecedented growth. The numbers are huge. So they're anticipating compound annual growth 13.4% a year. And and I believe those numbers. We're seeing the same sort of growth here with Open Farm Days, but a lot of businesses are entering into the agritourism space, and the reasons are driven by the consumer interest. So the consumer interest right now, they're looking for authentic rural experiences. They're looking for cultural and heritage experiences. They want to go and experience and understand what a small family farm looks like, how it runs, like who are the people behind these sorts of things. They're also interested in large scale agriculture and what does big ag look like, and how does it operate, and how does it run, and where does our food come from. A big interest right now in understanding food production, food systems. Through COVID and different things, we saw concerns around food scarcity, and people are looking to be a little bit closer to understanding our food sources. So that's one of the reasons. And growing from an international perspective are things like farm stays and farm experiences. So we're seeing a lot of people that want to go, they don't want to work on the farm. They just think they want to work on the farm, right? So they want to play on the farm. They want to understand what the chores look like. They want to understand what is a day in the life of a farmer. How do I do that? So it's not really about being put to work, but they want to see it and experience it at a really surface level. But they are interested in that experience. They're interested in farm to table dinners. And when I say farm to table dinners, this doesn't necessarily mean that they're looking for this elevated kind of tablecloth event. They're looking for authentic food. They want food that's grown in the region. I mean, they would be thrilled with things like pig roast. They'd be thrilled with barbecues. They're thrilled with smoked meats. They're thrilled with all those sorts of things. They're family style dinners that are large plates of fruits and vegetables and things that come out that are all grown in the area. So it isn't about sort of small portions and hoity-toity. It's really about real food from that area. And there's some interesting stats too that are 2024 stats, which is 29% of Canadians participate in some form of agritourism or rural tourism. So we've got a third of Canadians that are getting out there and looking at different opportunities. But the catch for them is trying to figure out, where can I go and what can I see and how can I get there? So Open Farm Days provides that platform for it. And it really, we look at it as opening that door to provide an opportunity to see what all of you folks are doing out there. And then the opportunity for you is to figure out, how can I grab those people and keep them as part of my network and grow with them and provide things for them. So when we did some research on Open Farm Days and we asked, what was the most important thing for you about attending farms and Open Farm Days, what was interesting was the number of people that were talking about multi-generational things. So we love showing our grandchildren what farming is all about. Sort of feeling like that they've missed a generation and that people no longer know where their food comes from, and they no longer have a relative that still lives on the farm. So we're getting further and further away from that. So having that opportunity for people to come out and do that. Now, when we talk about agritourism and bringing kids out to the farm, there's some immediate concern from people too. It's like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do with them? And thoughts immediately seem to go to face painting and jumping castles and things like that. And what I would say is really, while those things are wonderful, they can get all those things in the city. And there's things that they can get on the farm that you can't get in the city. So those are the experiences and stuff that we're talking about. And those are the things that people are really looking for. So I know people do bring in castles still and do face painting and things like that, which is absolutely fine. It's not what our visitors are necessarily looking for. If there's one, yes, the kids are all going to flock to the castle because they understand it and they know what that is and they know how to interact with it. But I would say some of the real magic of Open Farm Days is when they're interacting with things that they haven't seen before and are new to them. And that's that sort of exploration. So creating a farm experience that's farm friendly for children is probably a little easier than you think. And you probably have a lot of the things right there. And the pure delight in the eyes of children when they're, feeding chickens and they're petting a horse or a cow. And on the right, we had, they're making little crowns with the flowers and stuff they picked. So those are the magic moments that the parents, the grandparents, the children are all having these incredible experiences. So so I think it's really important. And I've done a little kind of a snapshot on authenticity, and then we're going to get into kind of a bit of a more robust list. But what we say is authenticity is key. So what is it that your farm has? What is it that you do? That's what you should be talking about. Don't worry about bringing extra stuff in that's not what you do, or do on the fringe of what you do, as long as it makes sense. So we say that your farm holds endless treasures for urban kids. So designate your area that should be off limits for children, and then develop different activities and ideas that are something that your farm is about. So for this one, we're talking about a farm with pigs. So we had one farm last year that had a fresh pile of dirt, and they put in little shovels and buckets. And I mean, the kids played all day in the dirt and just loved it. And they had some mini tractors and little things that they played with. And I mean, it was just, they were laughing at how much fun the kids had just playing in this massive dirt pile. And, those are kinds of things that are fine. Feeding station times for bringing your animals close and letting kids have a chance to take a look at feeding them. For pigs specifically, watering stations, washing stations, things that you can do with them so that people can see, how you do things. Pig fact boards. So here's some information of did you know? There's a lot of websites and stuff out there too, because there's a lot of things that that you don't even think that people don't know. But there's so much information out there that the average consumer just has no clue about. But you can go to some of the commodity websites, and here's something that I always say is, you don't have to just look, if you're pigs, you don't have to go and look at Alberta pork. You can look at all the international sites too that are talking about it. We don't need to limit our resources to Canada. But there's so many interesting animal facts out there. Fun to print out some stuff, have some little one-pagers for people, little did you know signs, little fun things that you could paint up or do that really become interactive for kids, and that could be stations where people can get little pictures taken. Here's one farm, and they did a great job, but they had their kids involved. They had smaller children, and they had their kids actually recruit the other kids that were arriving and take them through a day of what they do, what it looks like, what their chores are. And I mean, the kids just loved it. And it was fun and it was authentic, and they felt like they really made kind of some connections. And I will say that the farm kids really enjoyed it too, because they were just, this wealth of knowledge, and they knew how to handle the animals and they knew what to do. And they had all these little people following them, and it was kind of neat. So into the barns, showing where the piglets are born, photo ops with the different animals, printable activity sheets. Again, so much stuff is out on the website that can be around what you do, and again, those commodities. And then when we start to talk about food, what are the food things that might be related to what you're farming? So we would encourage people, if you are going to do food, and you don't have to, or if you're going to have a food truck or something, but just make sure that maybe it actually amplifies what you're doing there on the farm. So here's a list of 50 authentic farm activities. And we put this together because this is really, we know people like their checklists, and it's to get people thinking about what they can be doing that amplifies what they're doing. So this checklist we will be putting onto the Open Farm Days website, as well as just a standalone list. Discovery maps for your farms, an opportunity. This is also where you can do out of bounds, inbounds areas, but things where you can kind of print it once and people can have fun with that. Barn and farm tours obviously are an obvious one. Cultural and heritage talks, campfire talks. So this could be bringing in elders, this could be bringing in parents, grandparents, kind of old timers from the community that are happy to sit and talk about different things. Great opportunities to bring those people forward and give them a platform to tell their stories. People are really interested in the history of the area, when the homesteading started, how long families have been on the land, those kinds of things. Those are great kind of storytelling things. Obviously, market tables and stuff are fun. planting seeds, little seedling cup stations. Those can be, really fun things for a kid to leave with, a little cup and a seed, and understanding how long it's going to take to germinate and why they're growing it and what it is. Again, they can be really low cost items. U-pick farms obviously are huge. Digging root vegetables, and usually done with some sort of level of supervision and stuff, and collecting them, a lot of fun. We've had some farms that have done, like a small plastic bag, and they sell you an empty bag for $5, and you can fill it with your root vegetables. And everybody's leaving with 2 bags of stuff, and it's a lot of fun. But the kids just love pulling the stuff out of the dirt. So in that scenario, they were using a pitchfork, they were turning it over, the stuff were out, and the kids were picking them up, brushing the dirt off, and shoving them in bags, and they were just tickled pink with it. Feeding chickens, looking at egg incubators and how they work. As part of the farm chores, someone was doing actually egg collections, so the kids could see how you get them, which was a really big one. Milking cows or goats, those kinds of demos. And I know in the past, Alberta Milk has been supportive and have some equipment for those kinds of things as well. Petting and holding animals, having an animal station where, there's a place to sit, and, somebody is supervising, but an opportunity to pass, some animals around so that people can see them up close, obviously supervised. Grooming is a big one. Farrier demos, horseshoe toss, things like that, shearing, weaving, fiber mills, like really, those are lots of fun and educational stations. If they're not things that you do on your farm and a neighboring farm does it, having some information like that can always be interesting as well. Our wagon rides, pony rides, and trail rides, again, we are back on with those, so that is great. Picnics, cookouts, things like that. I often have a lot of farms that will call and say, I don't know if I have enough going on in my farm. And I'm like, honestly, if you have barn cats and a farm dog, you've got enough. And I say that jokingly, but it's to some extent, it's really quite truthful. But also understanding, like having an educational piece around that, like what is the purpose of that? What do the guardian dogs do? What are the farm cats and their outdoor cats, and how does that work, and what is their role on the farm? So there's lots and lots of different ideas along those lines. As we start to get into things like, I won't go through all of these, but like we've got our corn mazes, those are natural ones. But hay bale mazes, we've seen a lot of people put together those quickly, and the little ones can just spend hours and hours running through those kinds of things, which I think is a lot of fun. For those that want to do contesting in different things, we've seen sack races, wheelbarrow races, carrying water bucket races, things like that. Beehive tours where people are suited up and get close to a hive, always big. Farm crafting and wild crafting, so making a craft table where people are collecting rocks and twigs and building different kinds of things, all sorts of stuff. Now, for Open Farm Days, over the last 5 years, we started doing coloring pages. So now we're getting quite a few of them. We're still in the process of a couple for this year, but we've had different artwork now for the last 4 years. So we have coloring pages that are everything from our bison year to our alpacas. And then this year is water. So we've got a beautiful painting. So we're just finalizing it, but hope to have line drawings of that so kids can be doing coloring. We did have a couple of places last year that were doing coloring and painting using things like berry juices, but they were also picking dandelions and different things, and actually using the plants to color on those coloring pages, which was a lot of fun. So the kids had a lot of time running around picking at dandelions and then coloring with them. So again, lots of really creative things like that. Composting is huge. Understanding worms and things like that. And then of course, farm stays and glamping. So kind of a bit of a robust list there. And really it's about brainstorming what your farm does. What are the assets that it has? I was speaking with a U-pick farm, and they are a fruit winery. And this year they're actually going to do a fruit wine stomp, and they're going to collect the juices from that and then do a painting station with the juices. So I can see the pictures already of kids in these huge rubber boots doing the stomp and having just a good old time. It sounds like there'll be the odd stain on the clothing there, but I think it'll be just an absolute riot. But the more things that you can do that really tie into who and what you are, I think are the most important things. And that is what the children are looking for. They're looking for these farm experiences. So don't worry about spending money on a castle. You know, kind of think about these kinds of things, and you can see where we go from there. So here's the thing: if you're stuck for ideas and you don't know what to do, feel free to reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We're happy to sit down with you and brainstorm and talk about some different thoughts and ideas of what can happen. And we're here for you. So Suzanne, Cameo, and myself, we can book a call with you. We can talk about it. And then once we also know what you're doing, we can also then help you to market it. So Cameo is going to take your amazing events and your stories and what your plans are, and she's going to find ways to help amplify that messaging. And, you know, you can just see how you can say, hey, you know what, for your kids, if you're not afraid of a little bit of a berry stain, you know, you need to go and join the stomp that's happening out, you know, out in this area. So anyways, so really reach out to us. We're here to help you. And happy to brainstorm.
Candace, there is one question in regards to AHS.
Yes.
They want to know, do the same rules apply around value-added products such as pickles, jams, and pesto? They can be sold direct to consumer without being prepared in an inspected kitchen.
Yeah, so all of those ones are still fine. So there is a list of low-risk foods and high-risk foods. And we do have that, and that should be in our resources, but we can also send that out again. But there's a lot of things you can do that don't require AHS permits. And then we have a few extra relaxations. So if you want to do scooped ice cream, typically that requires a permit. For open farm days, they don't require us to have one. So there's a number of things that you can do for food that does not require extra work. Absolutely. So there's no changes to that part. It's just if you do want to do your own meats or prepared foods, that requires a step more.
Okay, and then there was just one thing I was going to add. When you're adding your longitude and latitude onto your profile, if it shows you not in the right location and shows you over in, I believe it's Siberia, it's because you forgot to put the negative sign in front of the longitude. So that one needs to have a negative sign in front of it. If you forget that, it will put you way over in some other country. Which we can go in and fix, but that's usually why when we get the phone calls saying that I'm not on the map, I'm showing that I'm somewhere else. It's usually because that negative sign is missing. So those are the only two things in the chat.
All right, wonderful. Well, our time is just about up. So if we don't have anything more, thank you for joining us. And again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to help you guys. And where we're at for registration, just so everybody knows, we're sitting at about 90 farms. We at this rate, this is in the next 2 weeks, we probably wouldn't be surprised to see about 100 applications come in, which is typical for this time of year. Our anticipation is that we'll have about 150 to 170 farms for this year. And we've got, in terms of new farms, I think we're holding about 25% new farms as well. So there's probably a bigger upside on what our numbers will look like. But our goal for farms really is it's not about more, it's about continuing to work with people, helping them to develop their experiences and to grow with open farm days. So it's not always more is better, but it's more in certain regions. So to help certain regions grow, to have neighboring farms around farm clusters is important for the visitation for your areas. So those are the things that we're really kind of doing some of our fine tuning and work on this year. All right, well, thanks everyone. If there's nothing else, we'll hopefully see you back for AHS and AGLC for those looking to have food on their farms.